how is directing yourself?
It was fine. It was fun. You know, I had great actors working with me, and it made it a lot easier. Yeah.
Your character has the Tourette syndrome, which is a syndrome that when someone has a kind of anxiety, cannot control himself and the way that he speaks. How is your difficult was approaching this kind of character?
You want to do it with sensitivity, but I think ultimately you feel sympathy. You know, he's a character who's an underdog, and so you root for him. And I think mainly what I was trying to do is create a humanity that you can empathize with, you know.
This was a passion project of Edward's, really great material, a New York story, but I think the content of the story is everyone can relate to it. It's a noir, it's set in the 50s, there's a beautiful cinematography by Dick Pope, great cast. I don't know, it's they're both good movies.
Willem, can you talk to us a little bit about what makes Edward such a master storyteller, both in front and behind the camera?
Well, he was everywhere, and he's quite fluid. He's an intellect. This is material he's lived with for a long time. So there's something about when you're overloaded with tasks, you can't think. He did his preparation, and in the shooting, he worked in a way that was very intuitive and very fluid. And that's exciting. And when your director's actually playing scenes with you, yes, he'll give you direction. Yes, before a take, he'll give you advice and that sort of thing. But there isn't the same kind of feeling of a world outside and a world inside. Everything's right there, which makes it, in an odd way, very organic. He was very drawn to that character. And he felt like, because he was kind of a gumshoe, it was that kind of world of a seedy detective office. They were wearing fedoras. They talked a certain way. He felt like to set that in a present time, it would have felt ironic or kitschy. It wouldn't have felt right. He felt like those people were borrowed. They were taken from the 50s, so we put him in the 50s. And I think also putting them in the 50s allowed a different kind of cinema language. It was a more credible to make it a noir, use a different kind of look, visual look for the film, and this very important element of story about government corruption. He latched on, half fabricated, but also drew on history, on the development of New York City in that period, and some of the corruptions and kind of ham-fisted slum clearance, and there's lots of things that may resonate for today that if it was set today, you couldn't see it as clearly. That's always the irony. Sometimes it takes a look to the past to see what's going on now. He asked me in a sincere way, said, I really need you to do this part, which is not just flattering. I respond to that, particularly if I admire the filmmaker. I trust that he needs me to do something. That helps you, it really does. And then I connected with the material. It's a beautiful character in the respect that when you first see him, he's not at all what he appears to be. And that's interesting. So many pleasures. Good cast, shooting in New York. I don't shoot that often in New York, even though I'm a New Yorker. Many pleasures.
My character is a guy who's seemingly just hanging around, but he's very involved in all of the political dealings of the day that are captured in this movie. So he's the quiet guy that's very integrated. He's trying, almost in a sense, trying to be invisible so that he can get in deeper in the political undoings that are taking place.
What do you think it is about this point in our history that makes it so fascinating, and what makes Mr. Edward Norton the perfect person to bring that story to life on screen in the way he so wonderfully has with this one?
Well, I think it's very theatrical in a sense, the idea of corruption. It's, I like to see movies that have corruption in it, and it also kind of stirs up in me when I'm seeing a movie like that I want to do something. And I feel like on some level, This is Edward's statement about what he wants to do and his showing what's happening today by taking it into the 1950s.
I think we're very familiar with Edward as a performer. What's he like as a director, though? Because I think there's always a sense that having an actor of his caliber becoming a director is helpful for you because he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, well, he's directed several movies, and he's just able to seamlessly go from giving very succinct notes as a director and then slipping into this character that has Tourette's, and it was awesome to watch.
Well, the script is quite dense, quite complex, but the characters are all very well drawn out. And even though, I didn't have that big a role, Edward had gone through the entire biography of my character, what he meant, where he came from, and then together we got. And it was amazing because it's not the biggest role, but he had thought things through so clearly and deeply, and then said, "Well, what do you think?" So, and it was really fun to actually get to threaten him every night when we were shooting. He actually reached out to me for 2 roles, and it was very cool. And he said, "Which one do you want to do?" And I loved this guy, so I was, He kind of said there's 2 interesting, and I wanted this. I kind of like the violence of this character, and I like the threatening. And I did get whacked in the head a few times by mistake that I'm still, reeling from. But yeah.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about the setting for this film and the unique challenges and rewards that offered?
Well, I'll tell you, it was 1953, supposedly, it started in 1953 when I first read the script, and I did all of this research, and we got through some things, and then the music and the jazz started becoming more of a character in the story, and Edward said, "I think it's going to be 1957 now." So, I said, okay, rewind, let's start again. The unique part of this was, honestly, Martin Scorsese was making a huge 1950s movie at the same time, and Mrs. Maisel was also filming, and they had literally vacuumed up every piece of 1950s clothing. So the challenge was finding it, sourcing it, but I made a lot of it, so I was happy to design it and have it made. So.
And can you talk a little bit about why that period of fashion remains so iconic and the character that represents in the film? Because I think there's this kind of wonderful marriage between exquisite refinement and disheveled agony in some of the costumes.
Right. I think that why people are so drawn to it is because that's when casual wear sort of, people stopped wearing a tie with everything, and men could wear a gabardine shirt with a suit or the suit trousers, and it's just a handsome silhouette. It's a strong shoulder, a good waist, a pleated trouser. Every guy should be wearing that today. I'm not a big fan of the skinny suit. I like the wide leg trouser. I think it's much more handsome on a man.
And my final question, can you just talk about what it was like working with a master storyteller in Edward Norton, and what you think makes him such a very special force both in front and behind the camera?
Edward is kind of a genius, so for me it was really a dream come true to work for him. I'm a huge fan of his acting, and I hadn't experienced him as a director, and I think he might be a better director than he is an actor.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!